Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. It's been a pleasure. Myself, Uday Vakawala, I am the CEO for AIC Rambhau Mhalgi Prabodhini Foundation. Welcome to the Baat Cheet episode 2. That is Speak, Showcase, and Seize. What we really are intending system and enablers together and ensure get into conversations which are about the struggles, the challenges, and the opportunities that could be shared with the entire community. Last month, we started with this initiative, episode 1, wherein we had the co-founder of Word of Mouth Media. And we spoke about communication, and I was there as another speaker, rather, joining that conversation, talking about incubation. The whole idea, as I said, is get interesting startups, get interesting entrepreneurs on board, and then try to listen to them and their stories. So today we have entrepreneurs from health tech startups talking about challenges and opportunities in India's healthcare sector. Now, healthcare, that's a very important aspect. If you would see, it's a broad spectrum. And this is something that we feel that startups can solve a lot of problems around that with the current scenario as well, and as a healthcare as an industry overall. Glad that we have AIC RMP mentor and Incubate joining this conversation today. So let me first introduce Dr. Aakash Ganju, who is the co-founder of Saathealth based in Mumbai, and Savitha, who is the founder and CEO of Omnicuris based in Bangalore. So we have Mumbai, Bangalore, and very interesting conversations all across India, maybe tier 2, tier 3 cities as well, that few of them are covering, including aspirational districts. And Dr. Aakash Ganju always has interesting stories about slums and how we can reach out to people within a particular area, which I'm sure a lot of you would be worried about. So with that, over to both of you for this interesting series and conversations. And thank you so much for accepting our invite. Looking forward to an exciting, engaging Baat Cheet. Thank you so much. Over to you first, Dr. Aakash. And looking forward, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uday. Savita, can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, great. So first, let me start by thanking Uday and his team for the outstanding work they do at AIC RMP in promoting, identifying, and giving the platform for young entrepreneurs and giving them the opportunity to do even more work than they are able to do. And secondly, I think it's Saturday evening, so I hope everybody is sitting here with a cup of tea or coffee. This is appropriately titled Baat Cheet, so this is literally an opportunity for Savita and me to chat about our entrepreneurial experiences and hopefully share some of our learnings along the way with everybody who's listening in. Savita, delighted to be here and talk to you. And one of the reasons why I'm excited to be here also is because I find always it very energizing to speak with entrepreneurs. The risks that they've taken, the ambition that drives them. In the middle of the night. So I always find it energizing, and so in that context, it's delighted to get to know you and to start this conversation with you. Um, Let me start, Savita, by asking you why are you here today in this conversation? Tell us a little bit more about your background.
Thank you, Akash, and thank you to Dai for this opportunity. It's really exciting to be part of the first cohort of AIC RMP and also to be here in this session organized by AIC RMP to speak about our journey. So thank you, Uday, and to the entire AIC RMP team for this fantastic opportunity. Thank you, Akash, for that question. I think that's a very good opener as to why, why be part of this session. How was it relevant? So for me, personally, healthcare has always been fascinating for me right from when I finished my post-graduation. I have been in the healthcare space for over 15 years now. The first 10 years has been as part of a corporate journey in the healthcare consulting. I was in healthcare consulting when I started off my career, moved on to pharmaceutical industry, which really gave me the other side of the perspective and interacting with all the stakeholders in the healthcare ecosystem. In the last 5 years, it has been the entrepreneurship journey in healthcare, trying to do a lot of things differently and make an impact. So it's for me, the reason of my fascination with healthcare is that there is a lot that healthcare can benefit by leveraging technology. However, only a very little has really been unlocked in the recent past, or from as when you compare it with other industries. So it really is a sector which is waiting there for value to be unlocked, especially with the help of digital technology. And that in the last 5 years, we have seen it at Omnicuris firsthand. When we get in the right expertise from the healthcare industry, combine it with the cutting edge technology, there is really magic that can be unlocked. So that's my journey in a nutshell, and that's why I'm here for and looking forward for a very exciting next for half an hour, 45 minutes with you, Akash. So let me check with you, Akash. So how has your journey been, and why are you in here today?
So, to begin with, I mean, I always never, I think Uday knows this, I don't lose an opportunity to meet with young entrepreneurs such as yourself, because it's always a learning. But my own journey, very briefly, I mean, I trained as a physician, and then very early on, I moved to the pharmaceutical industry. I worked there for about 11 years. And then about 9 years back, I took the entrepreneurial leap. And through a variety of ways and work that I've done, my focus has really been on the health consumer, because I think we focus a lot, and there's a lot of great work happening in strengthening supply side relationships. And by that I mean creating better systems for doctors, for hospitals, for nurses. But I think there is a tremendous opportunity to get patients or health consumers to the table, and that's been my work. And I think that work is a little amplified with what we are doing at Saathealth right now, where our focus is, can we reach out to and engage with health consumers and patients with behavior change content and digital platforms, and give them the tools to really meaningfully and proactively participate in their own healthcare journey. And I think they're ready for it, right? Because if you look at the journey of health, if you look at all of our journey as consumers, the amount of choices we get in any other field of our life, whether it's ordering a pizza at home, or ordering shoes, or choosing a movie at Netflix, the amount of choice and autonomy is phenomenal. But somehow that eludes us when it comes to healthcare. So that's what we are trying to do at Saath Health. We're very passionate about reaching out to the health consumers. It's a little difficult, Savita, I think, to talk about our own passion and our own work without recognizing that the world has shifted a lot in the last 8-9 months, right? So let's chat a little bit about how COVID's been for you personally, but also for the sector that you are in. What are the macro trends you're seeing in the sector, and also for your business? And maybe we start with how has it been for you personally?
Right. So, a very interesting question and topic to speak about, Akash. And, COVID just came in and kind of took all of us by a storm. So, personally, for me, initially it was a complete chaos at home, given that there is a certain rhythm that, I had personally organized for home. I have a young child, and, who's a school going child, and, everything else has been organized around that. And here comes overnight, everything is shut, and your child is at home and your office is shut, and there's a lot of chaos at home. And a lot of other support systems that we had organized had to be relooked at. So to begin with, it has always, it has kind of been a chaos to start off. But what happened is that very, very quickly, every member in the family really kind of stepped up to the situation, including my child, who's a 5-year-old, really stepped up to the situation. They all got the seriousness of what's going on, and surprisingly so, they kind of figured it out very quickly. And we all kind of settled into the so-called new norm of the COVID lockdown period. And we all of us had a sense that it's going to be long, but we all never knew that it's going to be this long. But that helped to kind of get into a rhythm early on, kind of get settled in the new norm within the family, having a new routine, a new systemic way of working for me, within the whole family system, which I wasn't really used to. So I would say that apart, over a period of time, what really happened is it gave a lot more time in my hand, which I wasn't really anticipating on the personal front. So which, could be used better for sharing with the family, as well as at times putting it back to work. So I would say, it was a mix of both positive and chaos in the beginning. But I would say at an overall level, I do see there are some positives which has emerged on a personal front. With respect to the professional side, so we were one of the fortunate ones because we didn't really have a major disruption in terms of either on the business front or on our working model with employees, because we always had mobile laptops for people. One of the biggest thing which was an eye opener for me, frankly, was remote working. I would have never imagined all of us would start up working remotely. Anywhere, some of our team members even travel to their native, and they've still today not come back. So I was not really anticipating this long of a remote working, but I was positively surprised with the way our team kind of took it, and the responsibility that kind of was shown by them at current situation, even when they were working remotely. So that's a positive surprise again, that there is efficiencies to be unlocked there, as our team started expanding and our people working remotely. And this is probably from a professional work front as well, given that ours is a digital reach out to doctors, empowering doctors. And this probably was a good time for us to kind of even scale up some of our operations, and hire more people and continue to accelerate that journey. So I would say that personally and professionally for me, initial hiccups, but beyond that, it has been probably, I would say, incrementally positive as well. How has it, Akash, been for you?
Sorry, yeah, I was on mute. Yeah, in case
Uh,
people are one,
are you on
yes,
mute?
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
You can hear me. Yeah. So sorry, in case people are wondering why we are spending so much time talking about, the family. I mean, I personally find that as an entrepreneur, it's very difficult to separate out the family from the work that you do. I've had a long career in corporate, and I thought that it was easy for me to do that. So I don't separate out, and I think family is a source of strength. So for us, my wife and I actually are co-founders, so we work together, and we have two young boys. So it was challenging, but what we decided to do was we decided to, instead of separating out family and work, we decided to combine it even more. So we got the children involved in the work that we do, and our older one is 11. He's old enough to start understanding and appreciating what we do. So and children are very resilient. So I think that's been very positive. On the work side, I mean, we've sort of been in the similar situation as you, Savitha, because I think we have a digital platform, and I think we what we found is that there are the number of businesses that want to reach their end consumers using a digital platform directly have just multiplied overnight, right? So conversations that would have normally taken 3 to 6 months to pick steam, all of a sudden got prioritized and jumped to the front of the queue. So in that sense, it's been good. On the work from home experiment, I'm still a little ambivalent about that. I mean, we've been able to get work done because of, we're also fairly mobile and digital, and I've worked for the last 15 years of a mobile phone and a laptop. But I do worry about ideation and innovation, and I struggle to do ideation and innovation on Zoom calls. So I don't know, but I think work's been busy for us. And maybe let's talk about the fact that both of us are in an industry that all of a sudden is extremely popular, right? I mean, all of a sudden epidemiologists are hot, and people who've done preventive and social medicine are rock stars. And it's an industry that's really looking to lead the world out of the current crisis. You also talked a little bit earlier, Savitha, about how so much can be done with technology. So let's hear your take on, has technology been used underwhelmingly in the past, and where do you see as the challenges, especially in the context of India, for technology to be applied?
Absolutely. I think the tech adoption in healthcare in a country like India can be quite larger than what it is today. Even in the last 8 months, it has tremendously improved. But I personally believe that there's still a lot of scope for technology to take space in the healthcare. So starting off from Akash, that what you all are doing in terms of reaching to the end consumer and sharing the right kind of information, health-related information across different specialities. So it all kind of begins from the consumer being well updated in terms of preventive health, in terms of just overall being conscious about health and having the right kind of information, right set of information. And then moving on to telemedicine that we are all have been hearing about in the past. Suddenly there is a change with COVID, because everything is at the cusp of an inflection point here, that telemedicine, which has been very at a very nascent stage, has suddenly given a lot of boost, even with the government coming in with a new telemedicine guideline. It has given a lot of boost to telemedicine. And with COVID, there is also a mindset change for general public as well, that it's okay to meet a doctor in person, not in person, but even digitally. So telemedicine, I believe, is here to stay. While, as you mentioned about the work from home thing, about ideation, there's definitely certain things that cannot be replaced, that technology cannot fill in, and that's going to continue to be there in healthcare as well. Like, for instance, you might have certain consultations which cannot be done in Zoom, or it cannot be done virtually. You need to be present with the doctor to have that, but there might be many other consultations, or there could be follow-up consultations which could be complemented with the face-to-face. So I really feel technology as not a replacement of the existing model which is there, but I feel it's a very strong complementing channel for be it telemedicine, be it information on health information to consumer, be it in terms of what we are doing about empowering doctors through digital means, sharing the right kind of information to doctors, keeping them updated on their ever-changing field of medicine, or be it all the newer ones, right? Like your wearable devices, you have your e-pharmacies, which is also taken a lot of, quite a lot of growth in the recent past. And the whole thing about data, right? The data which we do not have a baseline data as such in a lot of disease areas, if you see, and suddenly there is increased focus on the right kind of data, the right kind of analysis, and really kind of deriving some meaningful insights with data. So in each of these elements, if you see across the value chain, there is value to be unlocked with the help of technology. And I believe now is the right time for young entrepreneurs to really start thinking about how they can make that change. There is definitely a systemic change which is happening towards movement towards technology. That's what I feel.
So, Savitha, let me ask you this. I think a lot of the applications of technology that we are looking at in healthcare, right? Whether it's at the hospital level, whether it's empowering consumers, using data sets for smarter analytics or machine learning algorithms, they've been around for a while. It's not like, most of the startups that I do see doing really interesting work, it's not the technology that's really new. It's the application and the integration with the existing processes. So if the technology is not very new, what in your opinion has been the barriers to tech-enabled healthcare for such a long time? We have not moved the way we could or should have moved. And that's not just in India. I think it's a world over thing. But what do you think are the barriers to doing that?
Yeah, so I think as you rightly mentioned, Akash, it is, the application of that technology and integrating it with the regular workflow of the entire health cycle, right? So I think that's probably where there were some challenges earlier on. But for example, if you take telemedicine, for instance, telemedicine, when you have us 80% of patients actually sitting in the hospital, there is really a very difficult workflow for a doctor to kind of switch between a personal consultation versus a telemedicine, because it kind of breaks that workflow. And the same is with, say a consumer information for that matter. That's my belief, that it has to kind of be integrated into the current workflow that's happens in the entire health cycle, for that to get adopted better, and also the resistance of the entire stakeholders in the healthcare ecosystem for adoption to go lower. Today, what has happened is there is definitely a boost with COVID, which has kind of forced a lot of stakeholders to go away from the mental block and starting to think how they can, integrate with their existing workflow. Though earlier they didn't have to do that because they really didn't feel a very strong need, both from a supply side and a demand side. today there is an impetus for sure. And with that, if there can be the right kind of application towards looking at how we can integrate with the existing workflow and start making it more kind of, a seamless flow between the doctors, the consumers, the pharmas, the pharmacies, pharmaceutical companies. I feel that's something that can really work in the coming days.
So one of the challenges that I've found, and share with me if you've seen the same, you agree or disagree, is that very often when I'm in healthcare discussions with organizations talking about digital or technology, the thinking and the approach is very, okay, this is the way we are doing things, and then at the end of it, let's apply a little technology at the end or on the side, right? And I just feel that, look, you need to reimagine the entire experience with the user and the digital platform at the center, and then build outwards from there. And while when you're in conferences, people get it because your mind is free, but when everybody goes back to running a hospital or looking at patients, you don't have the time to reimagine how to go from where you are to where you need to be. But there is a fundamental shift that's required in reimagining the use of technology.
Right. No, absolutely, Akash. So it just can't be separate. So tech and health just can't be separate. And that's true for most industries. But I feel it's just that, in many other industries, it's very easy to understand the workflow. It's very easy to
Yeah.
understand consumer behavior, or the consumer uptake, or what really works, so called the product market fit. Whereas in healthcare, I feel it's quite knowledge intensive, and it's very deep. You need the right kind of domain expertise plus the right kind of technology expertise to come together if you have to make a real difference. So that's something, as you said, you can't just kind of build something and then plug the technology on top, or even the other way around, right? You kind of build the
Yeah.
technology and plug the domain knowledge or the expertise on top. So it really have to blend very nicely if you are looking at a disruptive model for healthcare.
Well, also, I think in healthcare, the incentives are not always aligned across the value chain. So, what works as an incentive for a doctor may be very different than that from a nurse to a hospital administrator to the pharmaceutical company to the medical device company. I mean, the incentives are very often at odds with each other. So, just aligning them is a whole new task.
Absolutely.
So lots of power to you and Omnicuris for the great work that you guys are doing. I want to segue into talking about a little bit about your own entrepreneurial journey, because I'm very fascinated always by how people make those decisions. And you mentioned earlier that you had a successful corporate career. So walk us through your mindset of how you decided to shift. Talk us through what went through your mind when you decided to leap into your entrepreneurial career.
Right. So, yeah, so I think personally for me, Akash, it was, entrepreneurship, it definitely comes with a lot of risk. It comes with a lot of challenges as well. So for me, it was very planned. So I was in corporate journey, and I was doing fairly well in my corporate career as well. And I wanted to keep it that way. I didn't want to kind of jump into it at an early stage. I felt it was quite a lot of learnings I was getting in from the industry, from the domain, which really will help me at some point in time. So the day I decided to take the plunge, I would say, in a fairly comfortable zone, and ready to go for that risk, because I knew it comes with a lot of, any kind of a risk comes with a lot of insecurity, and you do feel at times whether your decision was right. So I had to do it, knowing very clearly, keeping my eyes open, that it is going to be a rewarding journey, but it's not going to come easy. It's going to go, and we're going to go into the journey which is going to start right from day zero, and it is going to be challenging. So I was quite kind of prepared for it. So I would say, check on the financials. So there was adequate kind of financial savings which I had personally done, and from a learnings perspective, I knew that I'm not kind of jumping into something which I'm totally uncomfortable, totally not comfortable. So I was jumping into a domain which I have been in for the last 10 years. So these two elements really gave me a lot of comfort to take the decision in the beginning. And of course, as you move on, as you go on in the entrepreneurial journey, you learn a lot, right? Every day you come and think, oh, I haven't learned this in the last 10 years or 12 years of my corporate journey. And that's very, very rewarding for me personally and professionally, because I think I just grew as a person. And today, there is a lot of support system that we all have, like AIC RMP, for instance, just kind of bringing the founders together, helping, on multiple different things, starting from even the basic things like infrastructure setups and, AWS and all of these other things and then moving on to, this kind of different mentorships and different avenues, different contacts, opportunities. So that also is a big kind of enabler towards moving this journey. So I would say that's kind of a plunge that I took, but will be curious to hear your views on this, Aakash. I think you also have a similar background of coming from a corporate and doing quite well in the corporate journey. So what was your take on jumping into the entrepreneurial journey? And you mentioned a very interesting point that it was both you and your wife in this journey. So that might be an even more exciting story to hear from you.
Sorry. Now when we think about it, we think we were crazy to do that because we basically took the leap when we just had our first son, and I mean we were both doing well professionally. I think I was just at a stage in my career where I had the option of continuing to move upwards in an organization, and you've been in large organizations, and at a certain point you end up spending a lot of time managing upwards, which I understand because you get access to more resources, and so you can do a lot more. But I thought I was still fairly young, and what I wanted to do was really get out and be close to the end customer, and I was missing the opportunities to do that. And that's why I did try, to be fair. I mean, I work for an large organization that has a very, very entrepreneurial mindset, great entrepreneurial leaders. So I did try, within the organization to do some very entrepreneurial things. But at the end of the day, I felt like, look, I need to take you can't dip your feet and learn to swim. You have to just jump into the deep end of the pool. So that's what, and I was young enough to say, look, what's the worst thing that can happen? And my wife was very supportive. So I don't know if we would do that again at that stage in our lives now, but I think we were really driven by the need to learn faster and to be closer to the market than sometimes being at a large company allows you to do. But I'm also curious, sharing notes on entrepreneurship, Savitha, what is the one thing that you were not prepared for? It sounds like you, and I think both you and I spent some time thinking, planning. Obviously, you're not making these decisions only with your heart. You're also making them with your mind. But is there something that surprised you through your experience?
Right. I think it's just the ambiguity which I wasn't prepared for at all. Akash, I think every day you are waking up not sure how the day is going to go. And every moment is very different, right? You have one moment which can be at your peak, and you can have second moment which can be, which can just pull you completely down morally. So ambiguity is one thing which, maybe because I had a corporate background, and everything was secure, and we really didn't have to worry about ambiguity to a large extent, of course. I feel that's one thing which, I wasn't really prepared for, and it was a big learning for me. Personally as well as professionally, to handle the ambiguity and uncertainty. And coincidentally, today morning there was also an article on what founders should be looking at and how they should be caring for their mental health, more importantly, as they move towards this journey, because they are going into a journey which has a lot of opportunities, and it also comes with a lot of their own growth, personal growth in the process. So I feel personally entrepreneurs should look after their own mental health, their own personal growth as they are moving through this journey. How about for you? I think both of us have a lot in common. You came from a corporate background as well. So,
So
there's
there's a
something
lot
that
of
surprised you?
research now. I didn't have this research then, that shows that startup founders actually have a very, very high prevalence of mental health disorders and depression. I mean, where was all this data when I was making my decision? Right. So yeah, I think the ambivalence and the risk. The ambivalence is something that actually I thrive in, but I think beyond a point, then it becomes, you're dealing with ambivalence all the time. It becomes challenging. But I think one of the biggest lessons I learned is, I was last year I was at Oxford for a conference, and there was this guy who was invited to speak to us, and he told us this story. So he'd set up a fintech, British guy. He set up a fintech in Africa, raised a lot of money, about 50 million in funding, doing very well. And he was at that point, one of the toast of the international fintech startup world. And he said, I was at this breakfast meeting in New York, and on my table was Jack Ma and Catherine Lagarde, who was at that point the president of IMF. And he said, look, I'm thinking that here I am at breakfast with Jack Ma and Catherine Lagarde, and I know my company is shutting down in 3 months' time, because I've run through my funding. My investors are not coming through for more. I am, on all the major newspapers in the world, but my company is shutting down in 3 months' time. And so when he shared this story with us, he'd actually just shut down his company after raising more than $50 million in funding. And obviously he was still healing from the experience. And I think the one thing that he talked about, which really struck with me, is that, look, obviously I felt bad about it, but then when I stepped back and I said, look, I still have my wife and my family, I've done great work, I've made great associations, and I think that counts for more than anything else. So I think one of the things that entrepreneurship has taught me, which I was not prepared for, is to how often you have to go back and ask yourself, uh, did I make the right choice? And I think it really pushes you to ask yourself again and again, look, is this the choice that I would make if I would go back? And it pushes you to choose what's really important to you. And I think people who've been through entrepreneurship get that. And so there are many it's tough times, but you go through it because you know that it's the most important thing that you want to get through, and it's what you value the most. So I think, yeah, those are some interesting stories. Let's come back to healthcare, and do a bridge between healthcare and this. So one of the questions I got asked just recently is, if you're a young engineer, and you're looking at a variety of career options, right? Why would you choose healthcare? Because the impression that is out there, and I don't think it's wrong, is that the ROI in healthcare is too far out, right? I mean, you make a gaming app or you make an app for dating or whatever, and the ROI is earlier. Healthcare is too much work. The horizon is too far away. Share with me your thoughts on this. I mean, do you agree with that, first of all? And what would you say to these engineers?
Yes. So Akash, I absolutely agree with you, and your answer is there in your question as well, because it's exactly why the smart minds need to come, because it's not very easy to crack. The ROI is far because it's not very easy to crack, and that's exactly why it is important for people to get it right, create those entry barriers, create those very very strong USPs and competitive advantages, so that you don't really come and get run over by a competition overnight. So at least it's worked for us very very well. So we have forged a lot of partnerships. We have forged a lot of government partnerships, associations partnerships, multiple universities in the healthcare, which is really not easy to come to. You can walk into a Swiggy's office and ask for adding a fintech solution onto a Swiggy's app, and it might work within say a month or two. That doesn't really work in a healthcare, because it takes time for someone to in the healthcare ecosystem to really first of all understand and then agree and then implement. So it's a very very tedious journey. At least now probably it's a little shorter with COVID, but it's still going to be long. Any health disruption is going to be slightly longer than a fintech or a marketplace, e-commerce marketplace, or any other startup for that matter. But I think that's where the game is. Healthcare startups are for those who are here to stay in the long run. They need to be coming in with the mindset that I'm going to work through it. It might not come in the first time. You might have to repeat, you might have to pivot, you might have to do multiple iterations for you to get it right, because it is a knowledge intensive industry and there will be experimentations down the road. So it is for those who are here to stay in the long run. It is for those who are here to build those entry barriers, not being, creating something quick, getting some quick traction, and then seeing what next. So it's not for that. It is going to take a while, but it is going to give very, very powerful and competitive advantage in the long run. So that's my take on anyone wanting to do in the healthcare startup.
Yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted, that's for sure. The ROI is long, but also your ability to stay. I mean, it's like somebody saying, I just want to run 100 meters. Okay, if you want to run 100 meters, you run the 100 meters. If you want to be a marathon runner, that you need to come with a different mindset. But also the glory is very different, right? I mean, there's a different sense of gratification that comes from building something that's longer lasting. and not everybody is going to sign up for that, and that's okay. But if you want to sign up for healthcare, understand that I do think it's a marathon. I don't think it's a sprint.
Yeah, absolutely. Agree with you there, Akash. So
So
have
that
you been seeing on your, B2C consumer information and data sets and machine learning that you have put in behind your engine with the current COVID? So what kind of trends are you looking at? Because that's a very interesting space on consumer information and consumer health information.
my team, I mean, I like working with people from very different backgrounds. So my head of product development has done a lot of work in fintech in Europe, and so he doesn't bring the healthcare legacy mindset to the table. And we do a lot of learning from other sectors and other industries. So what we are building right now at Saathealth is we've already built the first stage. It's ready for commercialization. Is essentially a health recommender system, very not very dissimilar from what Netflix or Amazon does. So Amazon makes about 30% of its revenue from recommendations, and we are seeing that, look, when we are engaging health consumers with behavior change content, how do we lengthen and deepen our relationship with them? How do we make sure that we are with them for as long as possible? Because that allows us to create sustainable engagement and impact. And so we've deployed these health recommendation algorithms with our cohorts, and we've seen a 128% jump in engagement, simply using technologies that Netflix and Amazon and all these guys are using, right? And we've just not used them in healthcare. And there are some examples of companies that are beginning to use these recommender systems globally. So I think one of the things that we should do is really also learn from what other sectors are doing. I understand watching movies on Netflix is very different from doing healthcare, but the underlying technologies might have relevant applications, and we should wholeheartedly embrace them. So we continue to look at many of these other sectors, and even within healthcare there's some really exciting work that's happening in just reaching out to both physicians, and you're doing some great work in reaching out to physicians and upskilling them, which is a big need. There's going to be a 30 million deficit in healthcare worker force by 2030. So we not only do we need physicians upskilled, we need physicians being able to do much more with fewer resources by that time. So I think we just focus on learning from other sectors. Hey, let me go back and ask you about, again, I'm very fascinated by the entrepreneurial journey. How do you deal with stress? And don't tell me you don't have no stress, because that's not the right answer. How do you deal with stress?
I would put it the other way. I think that's the only thing that entrepreneurs have oftentimes, right? So I think for me, Akash, it was as I said, it was a personal growth. You really kind of work towards it. So if you have sustained in an entrepreneurship journey for say over 4 years, 5 years now, there is no way you would be able to sustain unless you kind of learn and overcome and learn to live with stress, right? Nobody can avoid stress, nobody can stop stress in a any high pressure environment for that matter, whether you are in a corporate with a very high responsibility, and more so when you're an entrepreneur where the life is not as easy as a big organization and you're still on top, you're still responsible for a lot of people. So I feel I've just over time learned to live with stress. I've kind of learned not to internalize stress, but learned to kind of see beyond stress, like some of these advertisements which say learn to look beyond fear. So that is something that it has just taught me, or I was forced to learn in my entrepreneurship journey, that it is going to be stress every day. We need to be able to accept the stress, and we should be able to look beyond that. There will be anxiety, which is the worst part of it, which comes from ambiguity. So I kind of over a period of time learned it to deal with it, learn to live with it, and not let that internalize and affect my day-to-day productivity. So that's one thing which I didn't envisage, that I should be, this kind of a personal transformation would happen for me. But I think there was no other choice for me, but I had to go through this. And a lot of other entrepreneurs whom I've spoken to have spoken about this. But interesting to hear your thoughts, Akash.
No, but before I share this, I just want to make sure that anybody listening into us, we are not trying to dissuade you from being an entrepreneur. Quite the contrary, we are encouraging you to invest in yourself so that you can go through this journey and enjoy the journey as it's meant to be enjoyed. And I think, one of the things that, I would say is that invest in, family. I think it's important to make sure that your family, surround yourself with family. They don't always have to agree with your choices, but as long as you have your support, it's an important thing to fall back on. Invest in yourself physically, spiritually, emotionally. Try and stay fit. I know it's very difficult, but try and exercise. Try and do things that take you away from work so that you can think from a broader mind. So you do need to invest in yourself to be able to what I call is, build the legs and the lungs to go through the entrepreneurship journey. You need both. It's a marathon. And that brings me to the sort of my last question, Savitha. So uh, you do all of this, you go through all of this stress, um, because it means something for you, right? You're hoping that there's something at the end of this finish line. So let's say we meet in a few years time again. What would you consider success as an entrepreneur?
So I feel, of course, you have the standard, the numbers, the growth, etc., on one side, and everybody knows those success metrics. But I think for me, personally, Akash, once if you have navigated all of these years and if you've created the kind of impact that you wanted to create when you came in, that kind of a subjective satisfaction that you give to yourself personally, I would consider that as my biggest success for me personally. However, no one can deny the professional success metrics, which are the standard metrics of your growth, your numbers, your users, etc. But I would feel personally satisfied because no one can really tell, how it is going to be a few years down the line. However, I feel for every entrepreneur, there is no failure as long as you are able to just survive the journey, because there's a lot to learn in that journey. So for me, it is, if I am able to feel that I've created the kind of change and the kind of impact either on myself as well as what I've envisaged to do in the beginning, I think that I would consider as one of the biggest success factor for myself.
Yeah, I think it's very well said. The journey itself should be a proxy for success. And Bob Dylan once said that if you get up in the morning and if you go to bed at night, and in between you get to do what you want to do, you're successful. And I do think that keep reminding yourself. Of course, you have your financial goals, you have your impact goals. If you're working in healthcare, you can't not work in healthcare without your impact goals, right? And you need to hit financial goals for yourself. But if you don't enjoy the journey, I think you'll miss out on the essential success metrics of being an entrepreneur. Savitha, I for one am so enthused that India has entrepreneurs like you bringing your expertise to improve healthcare. There's lots to be done in India. I think it's a great time, great opportunity for us to bring technology into healthcare, and I'm just so delighted that we have entrepreneurs like you at the front of that charge. So many congratulations, and my best wishes for you as we wrap up this Baat Cheet. And I want to just thank Uday and his team again for inviting us for this conversation. Any final words or thoughts from you, Savitha?
Thank you, Akash. It was very insightful to talk to you, to hear from you on the other side. You having had this slightly longer than what I have been through. It's always great to speak to someone who has actually been here a little longer. And thanks to Uday and team, AIC has been one of a very strong pillar for us. We've been in part of the first cohort. Everyone, I think, as part of the journey, when you are with like-minded people, it just makes it a lot more easier to in the course of journey. So thank you so much, Uday and team. And for everyone who's listening, who want to go into the entrepreneurship journey, by all means, please get into it. And as Akash said, all that we should look at is to just enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, and just look at personal growth, look at professional growth as well in the process. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Uday. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.
Thank you. Our pleasure. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for joining in. Just to kind of conclude, I believe one of the most important part is of this conversation is the personal story and this, as I said, struggles, but the struggles bring in a lot of sort of learnings as well. which I believe very important for an entrepreneur and a founder to really understand how entrepreneurship is all about. And this is what at AIC RMP we love. We for joining in. Really appreciate. If you want to reach out to us, it's social@aicrmp.org, on which we would love to have your insights. If you want to be a part of Baat Cheet, you are most welcome. This is your platform, your forum. Looking forward to it. And it was really wonderful to have Dr. Aakash and Savitha today. And it's been really a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, everyone.